and it took the longest was when we started talking about a couple of the projects that are what they call a 79E, which is a New Hampshire RSA that was adopted by the council, I think back about 10 years ago, to offer assistance for property owners to be able to rehab their buildings in a certain district here in the community.
Okay.
We had one that we actually started on at the beginning of the month. I think back on July 9th, we had a public hearing. We had some questions. We tabled the discussion. Mr. Nelson, Jonathan Nelson of 31 Myrtle Street, had back in 2020 was approved for, I think he said, to rehab his building over there. And for whatever reason, as we all know, the things got changed around considerably during COVID. Everything kind of really
slowed down there quite a bit.
Slowed everything down. Everything got a little bit expensive, hard to try to find stuff, I'm sure. There was a lot of confusion on his project, and most of these projects are set up with covenants when they're approved, so that way, because what happens with the 79E is the value of the home is actually frozen at what the value was at the day that the project starts.
So it's $75,000 the day it starts. It's locked in for so long at that point.
So basically you get a certain amount of time frame to be able to complete your project.
Okay.
And at that point, that's when it's actually frozen. So with Mr. Nelson, his project never was actually completed. Even though his tax assessment never changed, it was actually never completed, so he wasn't given a tax benefit in the respect that because his taxes were frozen. His benefit was because it was under construction. And as we all know, when you do construction, tear your place apart, your value is actually less than what it normally would be if it wasn't under construction. He thought that he was receiving the tax benefit based upon the 7 years that he was approved at that point. There was a lot of confusion with the tax assessor, the planner's office, and again, we figured out about 4 or 5 months ago that we really need to look at things a lot more stringently at the council level, because again, a lot of the covenants were put into place after the council would look at it back in the 2020 range and those types. And I'm not blaming anybody. It's just it
a little bit of oversight, so it kind of got dropped through the cracks. The best way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely, because nobody did anything purposely wrong.
Yeah.
But like I said, Mr. Nelson thought he had actually been receiving the benefit, so he thought he was good. The city felt like he never completed the project, so it hadn't started. So at the end of the day, there was a long discussion. And in all honesty, I know there was a bunch of different things that were talked about. But the biggest thing is that the covenant stated that the project was supposed to be completed by April 1st of 2021. It wasn't approved until October of 2020, if I remember correctly. So that wasn't a lot of time.
6 months is pretty tight timeline.
Which is why now when we start talking about some of these covenants with folks, we always look at them saying, okay, when are you going to have your permits so that way you can start? How long is it going to take you to complete the project? Because the only time you can use for a completion of a project, according to the 79E statute, is on April 1st, because that's when the tax assessments are done on properties.
Okay, yep.
Which is why they go with the April 1st. And as Mr. Nelson said, that it would be almost impossible to have tried to complete that project in the time frame. He did sign the covenant. The planning director at the time signed the covenant. So I understand if we were talking 6 months difference, but again, it had been 4 years since this had been taken place. So at the end of the day, the council voted to remove his 79E tax break, and at this point, all it did was it just stopped. He's going to be assessed at today's current value and just move on. There's no reimbursement to the city because this person never actually received tax benefit from the 79E application at that point either.
Okay, so was he I know you guys discussed this one. Was there another one that got added under the 79E recently as well?
So under new business, we actually also had the property at 44 to 50 Central Street, which is actually 3 different properties or homes right down there on Central Street, almost across from the soup kitchen.
Okay. Yep.
This property was bought by Mr. Murray. William Murray is the gentleman's name. He's actually purchased quite a few buildings in town. Probably the closest to us at the moment is 57 Broad Street. If you remember, a couple of years ago, they put the new roof and stuff on down here.
Yeah.
They've been doing a lot of nice work in the community. They purchased the 44 to 50 Central Street. I believe there's 12 or 13 apartments between the 3 buildings.
Okay.
So what they're doing is, at this point, I think they had 1 tenant left in the building. They're going to be rehabbing the buildings, all 3 of them, and they were planning on spending about $500,000.
Wow.
I think it was $465, if I remember right, on the application, which they do a lot of the work themselves. And again, everything I've seen and heard, their projects are coming out very well. So this was brought up, and again, it was another one that was asked for 7 years of tax benefit. He was given until, I think it was October of this year, to where he could start the project by getting permits and everything, and we gave him until April 1st of 2027 to complete the project.
So a little bit more wiggle room.
Which, again, it gives him, at this point, is what's that?
A year and 6 months, a year and 8 months, something around there.
Which, that's why the council has been trying to ask the applicant about how long do you need? Because the last thing we want to do is box somebody into a corner.
Yeah.
But in the same sense, the city manager needs to file all this information anyway, so she's going to start giving reports to the council on who's completed, what they're completed. I think she said in the fall each year at this point, because the last thing we want to do is ever have to go back and look at it and say the covenants haven't been covered, because again, it's bad for everybody involved. And I feel bad for Mr. Nelson on the first one, because again, I think he's got to the point where he's got a completion. He felt as though he really had received 4 years worth of tax benefit, which I'm happy for him. But in the same sense, like I said, both sides kind of could have done a little bit better job at that one. So
I know the 279Es were obviously a big topic last week between city council and social media, obviously. On to some better things. The library